Hey friends, this is Dolynny TV. Glad to have you aboard here this evening as we get set up to discuss what was a big day around the NHL that hit home in Edmonton today, with the Oilers making a move to bolster the AHL roster. It's been a nightmare season down in Bakersfield with decision making behind the bench, injuries, and of course performances from the forward group. So we'll discuss all that in a matter of moments. Remember, Ben Gleason was traded earlier this year, so we'll stay tuned to talk about who just got traded off the Bakersfield Condors roster for a new forward. And as well, we'll discuss a little bit about what was in Patrick's video over on the Oilers Fanatic there today, because it is intriguing to think about once again for about the millionth time in the past 6 years. So before we get too far, if you are new to the channel, as I look away from the camera, I'm going to tell you right now, consider hitting that subscribe button here on the channel. Appreciate you if you've already done that here lately. And without further ado, let's get into the action that is, as we go to the Oilers acquiring Jacob Perrault from the Montreal Canadiens. Edmonton receiving a 22-year-old forward from the Canadiens on Friday in exchange for defenseman Noel Hoffenmeyer. Now, Hoffenmeyer, a little bit older, I think, 25, 26, 27, somewhere in there nowadays, and just really never took that next step after obviously coming to the Oilers following a couple of jumps up through the Toronto Maple Leaf system. Unfortunately for him, I believe he did also manage some injury time here in Bakersfield, so that is kind of where we go with that, and that makes us move on to the next one, which is the press release notes, which you already read the top part. But Jacob Perrault was drafted back in the first round, 27th overall by the Anaheim Ducks during the 2020 NHL draft. He spent 2 years with Sarnia prior to that in the OHL. Perrault made his NHL debut with the Ducks on January 8th, 2022, and suited up in 161 games for the AHL's San Diego Gulls, 91 points. So he's a guy who, you know what, he's going to contribute some offense to the lineup. The Oilers in Bakersfield really don't have young guys contributing a bunch of offense right now. And when you look at the lineup this evening in Bakersfield, I'll read it off to you, just kind of hit this point home. Let's go down, scroll. Drake Pajula is on the top line with Pedersen and Savoy, so we know that's good. And then you've got Stefan, Philp, and Wright, which again, James Stefan is kind of a little bit out of his depth in terms of lineup positioning. I think more suited to be a third line forward right now, and just with the injuries to the Oilers Bakersfield affiliate, you know, like a James Hamlin missing, getting suited up in the second line. And then you've got the Yamato, Grube, and Griffith on the third line, Petrov, Berglund, and Zhang. So yeah, you know what, I might say Stefan's out of his depth a bit there, but again, this is also coaching decisions that just aren't adding up. And of course, in the lineup this evening, Dineen, Kemp, Attard, Brown, Canuck, Liepert, and Warner on the defensive side of things. So that Bakersfield team desperately needs a guy that can score a couple of points. Young, not obviously a pro in the AHL or whatever you want to say, vet rule kind of guy, so that adds awesomeness to the lineup. He's logged 180 games total. I think the number for vet rule is 300 pro games, and you know, he's had some time as well, averaging some points down there with the ECHL Trois Rivières, and over 19 games with Laval over the past 2 seasons. He's only been able to post a goal and an assist, but similar to the Toronto Marlies, I believe the Laval Rocket are kind of a little bit of a hard team to crack compared to most AHL rosters. And his father played with a plethora of teams across his career. Yannick Perreault is the name you need to know. So what we have from Bruce Kurlock, who's been on a hot streak here over the past week, really breaking down a lot of big news in Bakersfield. I almost feel like, outside of Zach Hyman returning and scoring 2 goals last night, the biggest story this week's been in Bakersfield, where we have been just waiting pins and needles to get to this weekend, where we discuss what happens next, which is tonight's game, and obviously getting into Saturday and seeing if Colin Chalk ultimately gets to keep his job or not. Not saying the Oilers are making something imminent, but something's got to be imminent at some point here. We're going to have some problems. So basically, Bruce is going on to say this would be a player that the Condors are familiar with, given his time in San Diego. He was a pure shooter, who kind of morphed into a different player, will increase skill of the forward group. The Condors now down to one left-hand D after trading both Gleason and Hoffenmeyer. So that's where we currently stand as we delete all those graphics and go right back to me. Yeah, big day in oil country, and well, what can we say about the Edmonton Oilers today? We can say that the Anaheim Ducks bolstered their blue line today, but it'll probably come at the cost of Cam Fowler. At least that's what maybe the Oilers media will start circling around here over the next few weeks. We know Cam Fowler's been a name. It's been heavily discussed when it comes to the Edmonton Oilers. At least in my time, it feels like we've always been discussing Cam Fowler, whether I've been reaching or whether I've been hitting the spot, because, ultimately everything I've talked about seems to have come true at this point. Whether it be 5-6 years later, who cares? It's hitting. But ultimately for the Oilers, I think Cam Fowler is a target that makes sense, right? Has always made sense. Just a matter of a guy that's played on a very poor team, just like John Gibson for a lot of years here now in Anaheim, and necessarily with maybe some injury history as well. What does he have to give you? Who knows? So we'll see what happens with Cam Fowler, obviously, here over the next little bit. But I encourage you to go check over Patrick's video. He kind of goes over the more nitty-gritty details, and I'm really not going to concern myself with those, as every time I seem to talk about Cam Fowler, it ends in disappointment. So not going to waste too much time there yet, until things obviously start picking up over the next 4 or 5 weeks as we enter mid-January, I guess, right? I guess 5 weeks would get us there, right? I'm crazy. But yeah, that's really it for today. Obviously, that Jacob Trouba trade was massive. The return wasn't, but you kind of get where it's going. You don't usually see an NHL captain traded in the span of 24 hours the way Jacob Trouba was traded, but to each to their own, and I guess that's what the New York Rangers decided to do, as they have kind of been in free fall mode every time they lose. You think we're extreme when we lose. Oh man, those New York Rangers have done something absolutely wild. And let me just see to make sure I'm doing this right. The Rangers aren't in last place either, so not sure fully what the panic is, but I think you see Igor Shesterkin getting signed today as well. That's a pretty key piece of the puzzle in that regard. You kind of look at it from that point of view, and it's like, okay, maybe it all makes sense. The Rangers just trying to figure out kind of the next chess pieces that have to move, and they have to move them now or while they can before things get complicated. Friends, I've had enough yabbering about the Oilers today. I think it's Friday night. Let's get on with it. Let's enjoy ourselves a night. You know what, it's +8 in southern Alberta today, so I'm going to take it. Might feel like -15 with the wind chill, but who cares? Friends, enjoy your evening. I am up on O'Dear.